Can't get the audio. How come my hand can't hold it?
I think a few people are still trying to connect by audio.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Great, I think everyone's connected. This is great. Welcome everybody to our virtual community ward meeting for Ward 1. It's a little different world we're all getting used to now, right? These virtual meetings, looking at squares and people in boxes, but you know, it's a great actual turnout. I was talking to some of the staff earlier back a few years ago when we had this community ward meeting in person. We only had one person show up, so we're fortunate to have a little bigger group tonight, and it's really going to be a good opportunity for folks to talk about what they like about the city, what they would like to improve, and some other things that we might not be aware of that are important to you as residents. So welcome. We have a team here of our consultant, Horsley Witten, who's putting together the comprehensive plan. We're joined by the mayor, Council President Brito, and also Councilman Roderick, who's the at-large council person. So we don't want to do a lot of talking tonight. We're going to do a very quick round of introductions and then get right into a presentation and dig into some activities for the group to give us your opinions and feedback on certain aspects of the city. So Mayor, did you want to say some brief words?
Very briefly, I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day, especially the members of the public whose voice we really depend on to make this a huge success. And hopefully we'll have some spirited dialogue and great ideas shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brito, did you want to say something to your ward constituents?
Well, sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad we're having the chance to share this meeting with the public concerning our comprehensive plan. We know it's been some time since we had the last comprehensive plan. It's long overdue, and I'm glad to see that we're starting to plan the direction of the city, whether it's our short-term and our long-term goals. So thank you for the opportunity to share this evening with Ward 1 residents.
Great. And Councilman Roderick?
Just add that I'm really here to listen tonight and take part. And I think it's a further evidence that East Providence is really trying to communicate with citizens. And this is just one of many, many examples. So hopefully we'll hear some good stuff. Thank you all for participating.
Great. This is a first of 4 ward meetings. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll certainly adjust going forward. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Krista Moravec, who's with the Horsley Witten Group, to kind of take us through tonight's activities.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're there. You came back. You were out for a little while, but now you came back.
So how's that?
Good.
All right. So tonight I'm just, as I mentioned, a short presentation to go over the comprehensive plan and our update process. Our plan was to break out into small groups in virtual breakout rooms. I don't think we have a small group tonight, so perhaps we'll just stay in the main room, so to speak, and have our conversation that way. And then we'll talk about next steps. So I did have a quiz, trying to understand who's in the room tonight. So if you wanted to start the first survey question for me.
It says I can't, that I'm not the one.
I've lost my control pad, I'm sorry, when I shared my screen. That's fine. So why don't we, I'll go through the presentation and then we can introduce ourselves after, since there's only a handful of us. We can do that. So the comprehensive plan it's essentially the shared vision of the community for the city's future. And it lays out a pathway on how that the city will get there. And really, it's an important tool to help understand, protect what we love about the city, where we can target to make improvements, where we can be better, and then really create opportunities where we can transform and reimagine ourselves. So who uses the comprehensive plan? Well, it's used by local decision makers like the city council, boards and committees, city departments. It's also used by others who invest in the city, like state agencies, private developers. It gives them an understanding of how the residents in the community see its future and making sure that their projects are aligned with that. So it's a guiding tool about decisions. So it will help support local businesses in their development, helps the city prioritize investments in services and infrastructure. It's used to guide decisions about promoting equity and fairness and ensuring that there's access to opportunities for all residents. It helps guide decisions about development, what it looks like and where it happens, and protecting natural areas and historic sites. But it really covers a lot of aspects of quality of life of living in the city, doing business here. So traffic, it comes up, our roadways, walking and biking, our neighborhoods. Also, natural hazards like storm events and thinking about the impacts of climate change. So there's really a spectrum of issues that the plan covers. It is a 20-year plan. So thinking about these issues in the long term as well as current is an important thing to do. And when we think about planning, we kind of have a three-step process. So we look at where we've been and where we are now. So that's data and trends. So the city's current plan was last updated in 2010. So things have happened then. There's been some reports and studies and projects. We want to take account for those and think about current needs. Then we decide where we want to go. So what are future needs? Are we meeting them? Can we meet them? And what are our vision and goals to meet those needs? And then finally, how are we going to get there? So there is an action component to this plan. It's not something that sits on the shelf. So there'll be an implementation schedule that has a list of strategies. They are prioritized. We talk about who can help lead those efforts and set some timeframes for it. So this is our update process and our schedule. So we started in the fall with our data collection, looking at existing reports and studies, meeting with city boards and commissions, and really finding out what's happening on the ground in the city. So now we've moved on to listening to the community. We had a community survey out and hope that you were able to participate in that. And now we're going to have this series of ward meetings. And our objective is to understand what the issues are that the community sees. What is your vision for the city's future? And through the summer, once we collect all that information, we're going to sort of take that back and digest it and sort of put together some strategies and then come back out to you all. And, did we get this right? Is this appropriate for the city? Should we continue to think about this and move it forward? In the fall, we will have a draft plan that, again, will come back out to the community at large. So you can see our ideas, see our strategies. Did we get everything? What's missing? And then look for adoption and approval in the winter. So those are public hearings. The planning board will adopt the master plan or the comprehensive plan, excuse me, and the city council will, so the planning board will approve it and the city council will adopt it, excuse me. So what I would ask, so if you all could open your chat box and in the chat, we're gonna do some East Providence, a little East Providence love. And we want to know what, as a city, what do we value as a community? What are our values as East Providence residents? Give you a minute to answer that. And then, when are we at our best as a city? When are we at our best? Thinking about, when do we shine? how do we present ourselves when we're at our best? Any thoughts or ideas? That's fine. So those are the kinds of things we want to think about in our small group discussion tonight. And really.
Krista?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I just don't want, the public watching and the people viewing to think that the mayor and the council people and the school committee chairman, former chairman, on this meeting didn't have anything to say to those questions. We were allowing time for the members of the public to speak. And I think that's what we want to hear. Very good questions. I just implore the members of the public who are on this call to feel comfortable and offer answers, offer input. I don't want to, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So I'm hoping that people will participate and don't take the lack of participation from myself and the council to mean that we don't have an opinion. We just want to hear what the public has to say.
That's yes, absolutely. And we're going to get into those discussions. Thank you, Mayor. So really our focus tonight is on three questions. And we want to know what needs to be protected in the city for future generations that they should be able to enjoy. And this can be a place, a program, an event, a tradition. So what needs to be protected? And our second question is, what's doing okay, but it needs some support, or it needs some potential, or it needs some investment to reach its full potential for it to thrive. And our third question is sort of our visionary question. What can we transform and reimagine? What would really be an amazing opportunity, and to think out of the box on that question. So really, what needs to be protected? What do we need to support and offer some investment? And then really, what can we reimagine and transform? So we're gonna, and I would preface as well so those three questions, we're not gonna have consensus tonight. That's not what our objective is. Our objective is to hear people's thoughts and ideas, and to understand, what you feel are your concerns, your issues related around hopefully those questions, and just have a conversation. So when we do that, we have some ground rules. So we want to be kind and respectful to one another. We want to be concise. We have a short time frame. We want to make sure that we respect your time here tonight. So if we don't hear everything that you want to say tonight, we can make arrangements for you to continue to either have a conversation, or if you wanted to send us an email, we can provide that information. We ask you to be open to new ideas. This is a great opportunity. This is an update of a plan that's going to guide the city for the next 20 years. So we want to be open to new ideas, and be patient with technology, as I'm trying to do tonight as well. And with that, so that is really the short part of my presentation. I really wanted to just present that, talk about the plan, what its purpose is, and then just really get into a discussion around those three questions. So I think with the folks that we have right now, I think we'll just do a group discussion as we are, if folks feel comfortable with that. All right. So with that, I do have a map if any of your questions relate to a place. I'm gonna open up my windows here. So since there's only a handful of us, if you wanted to turn your videos on so we could all see each other, and we can have a conversation that way, for those who are gonna participate, and maybe we can go around and introduce the folks that perhaps aren't with the city staff or have, let's see, how about, I'll do a roll call. So we have Stephanie. Oh, you're on mute. You can unmute yourself. I can also do it for you as well if you need assistance. There you go.
Okay.
Stephanie Manny
Vinatero.
Great. And Tom Brunn.
Yep. Hi, I'm sorry. I can't get my video to come on. I don't know what setting it is, but
That's
I think
fine.
you can hear me. I'm not hiding.
That's okay. And so perhaps since we can't see you, do you know where the raise your hand feature is? Under reactions at the bottom of your screen. So this way we can make sure if you have any comments, we know that you're looking to say something. And Brenda Lister.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't want to turn my video on. I'm in my pajamas.
The perks of Zoom.
I get up at 4 in the morning. I'm done by this time.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And did I miss anyone that's there's the East Providence Chamber. Charlie Sonos, are you?
Jonas.
Tonis, thank you.
From the school committee in Ward 1, and I'm here to listen as well and to see how the new school, how it fits into the entire picture for the city, because it does offer a lot to the residents of the city.
Okay. So why don't we start with our first, and then there's the rest of the folks that you see here, they're city staff, and if they wanted to go around and they're going to listen into, so we have a lot of listeners tonight. So I don't know if Chris, if you wanted to introduce yourself briefly. So we're not all strangers.
Hey, yeah. My name is Chris Martin. I'm the Executive Director of the East Providence Waterfront Commission, housed within the Planning Department.
Thank you, Chris. And Dominic?
Hi, I'm Dominic, and I'm interning for the city in the Waterfront Commission.
Thank you, Dominic. And Natalie, so I will just preface, so Horsley Witten is also working with McMahon Associates, and they're transportation engineering planners. And so Natalie is here. So Natalie, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I'm a transportation planner. And so I'll be focusing on thinking about the transportation issues and opportunities in East Providence.
Thank you, Natalie. And Patrick.
Oh, hi, my name is Patrick. I'm the principal planner for the city's planning department.
And Patricia, did you want to introduce yourself? Or are you?
Sure. My name is Patricia Rezendi. I handle communications for the Office of the Mayor in the City of East Providence. I'm just here to listen as well and take notes.
Thank you. Thank you. And then my colleague, Nate Kelly.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nate Kelly. I direct the Providence office for Horsley Witten Group. I'm the principal planner there, and I'm just here to support the process.
Yep. And then my behind the scenes doing all our tech, Lena.
Hi, I'm Lena. I'm the staff planner at Horsley Witten Group, and yep, I'll be listening and taking notes.
Thank you. So we have a lot of listeners, but that's okay. So let's start with that first question that I had. So what needs to be protected in the city? So what's doing really well? It's really supporting a lot of folks, or really doing a good job at meeting its purpose. Does anyone, if you wanted to?
Well, I have to say that I think first and foremost, as school committee member Jonas mentioned, the community spoke very loudly and clearly in their support of the school construction bond issue, that public schools are a priority in this community. And I have to commend the present city council and the present school committee for putting their money where their mouth is and supporting public schools in East Providence, which shows in the public sentiment that they had enough confidence to support a tremendous building project, which will put East Providence at the forefront of educational facilities into the 21st and 21st century. So we are beginning a journey, and I think it's important for in our comprehensive plan that we build in continue the support. We've taken the first vital steps, but we need to follow up. I think it would be a tragedy not to. And I believe that there is a strong public sentiment for that. And I do believe that it pays dividends in increased property value and in the desire for people to locate in a community that has this support for its public education. So that would be my number one priority moving forward. And Stephanie, would you like to?
That's fine. I agree.
Okay.
Thank you. There's a lot of opportunities there too, I would, imagine,
Oh, absolutely.
for the schools, but also for the city at large.
I spoke this week, just to show that, how this trickles. Spoke to two alumni of East Providence High School who are both working on the new East Providence High School. So that bond issue money is going right back into the community. It's not a consequence. It's a positive thing. It's, money that is an investment, not only in the future of education, but a present investment in our labor force. So, and they're proud of what they're creating. So I think that's a very strong and positive situation that we find ourselves in as a result of, again, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, we couldn't say these things. There wasn't the community support, but today there is strong community support, and I commend the council and the school committee for taking this leadership, and the mayor. I cannot leave the mayor out of it either. We didn't have a mayor before, now we do, and this new experiment of the strong mayor form of government, I think, is showing very positive results in the continuity. We've had one leader now for 3 years. That's like a record for the last decade. We were changing city managers like.
Yep, it was for a bit.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to mute myself for a few minutes.
Please do.
So my question is, the other folks that have joined us, is there agreement with that? Anything to add?
Well, I know there aren't a lot of citizens with us tonight. It is the start of a busy weekend. So with most of us being affiliated with the city, I will speak up a little bit. I was prepared to do more listening, which I still will do, but it's hard to not participate. So I want to agree with what Mr. Vinatero and Mrs. Vinatero have started off with tonight, that education is important in this city. And I would slightly differ with Manny in a positive way when on one item when he said community wasn't always supportive. That's kind of true, but I think the community has always been pretty supportive in this city. It was certain officials that were not. The public has always voted for bond issues. As an example, the public twice voted for a recreation center to be built, and city officials stopped it, not the public. So I think Manny and I are saying the same thing.
I will agree with you there, Bobby. That's a fine point to make. Yes.
Yeah. And so along with our schools, people are concerned about other things that I think we're pretty good at. We have a low crime rate as a city of our size goes. I think we've dropped. We're maybe 48,000 people. We were always well over 50, but it's a pretty sizable city. and the crime rate is relatively low. We have great police and fire service to go along with the schools. And just about all of our neighborhoods are pretty quality neighborhoods. Some people have more expensive neighborhoods than others, but I mean, basically, we don't have a very bad area in this city. So I think hopefully we're going to keep building on this, improving on it, people want safe neighborhoods. They want the police, fire, schools. They want infrastructure. Again, past officials, to save a couple of pennies, wouldn't fix sidewalks and streets and would let buildings deteriorate. And they'd skip a small tax increase. And look what happened. Infrastructure failed. And look what's happening to it across the country. Look what the president's doing. And that's not part of our discussion tonight, but infrastructure is crumbling. So I think these are important things to watch for in this city. And I think that the mayoral form of government, at least there's a direct voice. We're trying to get communication out there. There's no more daily newspaper to speak of. Remember the days of getting a morning journal and an evening paper? Those days are gone. So how do you get the word out? So we watch the mayor have breakfast most mornings in diners and shaking hands with the cook and the wait staff. And, you know, that's not a bad thing. That's good. We're getting the word out as much as we can. And hopefully this effort will really improve upon that. And so are there things that need improvement? Yes, of course.
So we will get to that. That's our second question. Okay. So put a pin in it. We'll come back to that one. So
gotcha.
Make sure before we move on.
Yep. I'm good.
Yep. Thank you. Is there, I didn't know if either if Brenda or Tom or Charlie, if you had anything that you wanted to add and something else. So we talked about the school and the opportunity that it has. Is there anything else in the city that, you know, this needs to be protected, or we need to ensure that it maintains the vitality that it has? If is there a spot in town that's really significant?
Krista, if I may, the youth sports in the city are so important, and there are many of our children involved in the youth sports, and I think there's been very good help, support, assistance from the city, and the school, obviously the department is involved in it too, but we have many young people involved in youth sports, and that's so important to the vitality of a city. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you.
Chris, I'll just jump in, and I want to go back to one thing that Manny said about having a leader. I think that's really, I can't say how many, dividends it's paid with the questions that come up. There's a real person to focus on. So I think that's done really well, and that's working well. But I want to say too, I think as a community, I mean, East Providence has a lot to offer. I mean, I own an indoor tennis court, right? So in East Providence, we have like 4 indoor tennis courts and shopping, and everybody has a CVS and a Walgreens, but it seems like I don't really have to drive too far to get what I need most of the time, and I think that works well. I think there can be a little bit more. There's some development coming up on Newport Avenue that's potentially exciting in the future, but I think that works really well. There's a lot to offer within the city. It blends. People know each other, and we still have that community feeling. So I think that's working really well for us.
There's a lot of generations that stay in the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chris, it's okay if I throw in my 2 cents?
Sure.
Although I'm a council person, I am a resident as well.
Yeah.
I would say parks and recreation. And I say that because if you drive through the city at any point in time, especially from the spring all the way through the fall, you see how much our parks and recreations, how much they utilize. For example, I live over by Agawam Park, which is on Pawtucket Avenue. Softball goes on until a week before Thanksgiving. Because of the pandemic, they didn't have much softball going on. However, they had a kickball league out there. So it was always good to see some activity in that park. And that was on the front portion of the baseball field. There's two baseball fields, one in the front and the other in the back. On the back half of the baseball field, they had, you know, the young girls softball games going on. So if you drove by there on a Friday night at any point in time, up until roughly around 9 o'clock, you see the activity of just people being involved. You go in the playground again when the weather is warm, totally always being utilized. One of the things I've always said about the city of East Providence, no matter where you are, or what park you drive by, or what park you're in, it's always fully utilized by the residents of those people who live in the area, or people who don't live in the area, and they're utilizing, you know, the basketball courts, the softball fields, and things of that nature. So one of the things that I feel that should be protected is our parks and recreation.
Yeah. Great.
I also wanted to mention dog parks.
Indoor
parks are always a contentious topic. And
I don't want to leave out the dog parks. Those are nice.
Okay. Any other, I don't know, I don't want to leave you off, Brenda. If you had anything to add, I'll put you on the spot. Otherwise, we can move on to our next question.
No, not at this time, but thank you.
You're welcome.
I definitely agree with the Parks and Recreation, though. Very important.
Yep.
Get people outside.
Yep. And maintenance, all of that. They do a great job at that.
Yep.
So our second question, we'll move on to our second one. So where do we need to make, you know, a place in the city or something that's happening in the city? You know, it's doing okay, but we really need to think about investing or reinvesting to really kind of either, you know, make it thrive, bring it back. There's an opportunity for what's there, but it just needs a little something. Any?
First, I'll jump in again.
Please.
As a businessman, as a small businessman, I think the elephant in the room is COVID. And I think we do need to focus on supporting small businesses in the city, especially through these difficult times. Now, these times aren't going to go away quickly. And a good number of businesses are surviving
well, but we have to be sensitive to the struggling small businesses and do what we can to help them, in my opinion.
Right. So we're not out of COVID. We don't know, you know, the longevity of it. You know, if we experience something like this again, I mean, maybe there's some lessons that we can learn over the last year with businesses and how we could build support for them. Anyone else had something to add? So something that is doing okay. It needs some love.
Well, I know infrastructure has been mentioned, and I know that the city is trying to play catch up. There were too many years of no investment in the infrastructure, roads, water service and things. They're trying to catch up, but I think that needs to be a focus in the future. I have to commend, again, the council for realistically looking at the water delivery system. You know, East Providence has had a good water system for over a century. Well, you know, things need replacement, and you can't do it unless you charge enough for the water that's consumed to pay for the infrastructure work that needs to keep that system functioning. It started with a new water tower and replacement and relining of pipes, and they're continuing that. But you know, inflation comes in, and you need to be able to pay for what you want to accomplish. I think I may not be in a majority, but I do believe that, to put it succinctly, that we get a lot of bang for our buck in East Providence. No one enjoys paying taxes. No one's ever found a popular tax. But I don't know, I can't quote the person who said it, but taxes are what are our fee for society. You know, that's what makes us a civilization. I know that I'm fortunate enough that I pay taxes in more than one community. I have property in another community in Rhode Island. And in comparison, for the amount of services that I receive in East Providence, compared to those that I receive in the other community, it's not comparable. We are very efficient, very effective. Again, to reiterate that we get a lot of bang for our buck, but I think we should continue to focus on improving the infrastructure. Road paving is definitely needs to be a focus. The playgrounds and parks are doing fine, but they could be improved.
They need sprucing up.
They're starting to look a little long in the tooth. Maybe a little investment in some new recreational equipment. And I know that there's the potential of a new community facility being developed. That would be tremendous. To mention what Mr. Roderick's mentioned, the community supported on 2 different occasions bond issues to support that type of facility, but it's never been seen through its fruition. So those are things that could be improved.
That's great. Does anyone so we're looking at new investments. So that's dollars, or even, and that is, playground equipment, community center, roads, anything, water infrastructure. There's already been investment in water and the infrastructure associated with that. Anything else that
I want to say that the sewer treatment plant does not, I don't know how to put this politely, but it doesn't smell as bad as it did in the past. It used to be that you could definitely tell when you were approaching Riverside.
And it is, yeah. Yep. That's true. They did make some investments in that. And
FYI, also, Mr. Vanatero, we're in the process, and the council is aware, we're in the process of renegotiating the contract with the sewer plant operator. And one of the provisions that we want in the contract is that they put covers over the tanks so that there'll be no more smell ever coming from that area. So that'll be nice. And we want to get that done within year 1. So we're excited about that.
And that neighborhood right there
could
benefit from that. Definitely.
I mean, the other thing, Krista, is we talked about the roads, and one of the things that the council is addressing now is the sidewalks. Due to the pandemic, a lot of people were walking outdoors, including myself. And you get a whole different perspective of what our sidewalks really look like when you're walking it day in and day out. Prior to or pre-COVID, you're constantly driving. You really don't get to see what the conditions our sidewalks are in. And during COVID, I had that opportunity of walking through and around, primarily in Ward 1. Yep. And you'd be surprised, the trip hazards, the routes that are coming up, tearing our sidewalks apart. The city will eventually see more and more claims because of this. But you'd be surprised how bad our sidewalks are. And sidewalks, the council is addressing that issue. But, just the idea of walking, you get a whole different perspective of the infrastructure and what it looks like versus constantly going in your car and just driving around.
Yep. And you have a similar experience when you bike too. And there's some opportunities there. That's great. Are there to the sidewalks, I'm sure there's some prioritization that's happening, trying to find out what areas need the most help right away, or thinking about connections, if there's a missing connection, kind of where people are going when they're on the walking places. And is it residential areas connected to shopping or, destinations to the schools, more walking to schools. So those are things to think about.
And the other thing to think about is if they're in such horrible conditions, you have people being moved out into the streets, into our roads, and that's the last thing you want. Depending upon where, for an example, one of the biggest concerns is on Pawtucket Avenue. The last thing you want is people being pushed out onto Pawtucket Avenue to avoid a certain area, of the sidewalk that has a big indentation in, or you have, cracks or holes in the sidewalks that people would prefer not to walk through, but walk around.
And another thought related to that is accessibility, and people who are using either a wheelchair or have to walk with a cane or other mobility issues. The condition of a sidewalk can really improve how they can get around if it's been resurfaced, or think of width. There's so many criteria that go into sidewalks, so it's just another way to increase access for folks.
Kristen, Stephanie Vinatiero.
Yes.
I'm a retired East Providence teacher, and my last stint was at Myron J. Francis School from the day it opened in '89 till I retired in 2004, I should say. But anyway, there were sidewalks, and this is going along with what Council President Brito said. Finally, sidewalks were put in on one side of Horsford Avenue, right up to the entrance to Francis School. And because the school buses pull into the parking lot on that side of the building, and then they exit out Horsford Avenue, being head teacher for so many years, and Mr. Brunn can attest to this because his wife is currently a teacher there were many times that I had to run down the sidewalk in front by Francis School into the street to stop the buses, to move them over, because there were children walking down the street, little ones who really weren't paying attention, and I was afraid that the buses were going to hit them. Then we had young mothers, pushing strollers, trying to hold on to a child to get that child to the class, well, to the school, of course, and then into the school to the classrooms. But then you've got a detour around cars that are coming up Horsford toward the school, buses that are going down Horsford Avenue to get to their next route. And I have to say, it was a nightmare for many, many years. Having sidewalks, just one on one side of Horsford Avenue, has made a great difference. There's safety. You don't really have to worry too much about children getting run over, because at least when they're on the sidewalk, they're not going to get hit. So I have to commend the city for putting in those sidewalks, and I certainly hope that all schools have that opportunity, that they have the sidewalks there, rather than having children and young mothers walking in the streets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there could
just to piggyback upon what Stephanie just said, that's probably a future issue of concern, and that is traffic and security around all of the schools, specifically the elementary. There's not a school in this city where at dismissal time, or even in the morning at arrival time, the police aren't going crazy. There are cars, people drop. Kids don't walk as much as they used to for security reasons. It's a different world. So I'm thinking of, I know it occurs in every school, and I can think particular driving a lot by the Kent Heights School. There are cones, there are two-way signs, one-way signs, and people ignore them. And so I think that still remains an issue, safety around school zones.
Yep. And if there are opportunities to improve that safety, so more kids could walk, if there's an opportunity for that and help that.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for, and walking has so many benefits to, it's just, you're encouraging healthy living, you're walking, you're not, there's multiple benefits of being able to have that path. And I think during COVID, we sort of realized that, as you mentioned, Council President Britta, that, we realize how important it is to get outside and to move our bodies after being trapped in our homes all day. So it's another opportunity to kind of build on that. Any other sort of supports or investments for, things that, is there a place in the city that sort of needs some support to help it sort of thrive or build it back up?
Well, I know the Waterfront Commission is doing a superlative job in getting the, development in that part of the city. And from what I gleaned from newspaper articles, it appears that Newport Avenue is going to be undergoing a revitalization.
Yep.
Little parts of Taunton Avenue are getting revitalized. Right across from City Hall, there's some work going on. So, and that I think goes to what School Committee Member Jonas was saying. Those are small businesses that over on Taunton Avenue, and I just saw that the bank closed. Maybe there needs to be some incentive for businesses to locate in that central part of the city, right near City Hall, which is that's our city. We don't have a real city center, so to speak. We don't have a downtown, but empty storefronts across from City Hall don't send a very good message. I know that bank has been a bank for forever. And there are development plans for the corner where the old theater was. I would just like to see that become a more vital aspect of our community. You go through small towns like Bristol and Warren, they've got that little downtown shopping area and business area, and I'd like to see that because that's what Taunton Avenue used to be at one time.
So the area right in front of City Hall, that's an opportunity for sure.
You've got the library in the back, and if you could if they were in the plan, if everything could be tied together.
And the post office, there's a lot of destinations there.
A lot of community service.
Yep. There's the schools, the Sacred Heart schools there. There's a lot happening right there. There's definitely some opportunities. It does feel like a city center though, just because of those places are there.
So one other place that I would like to talk about is a gem that we have right here in Ward 1 that usually goes unnoticed, and that's Hunts Mill. Right in Hunts Mill, we have two pieces of property on there. There's a small house, number one, that's been abandoned or boarded up for a number of years. And number two, the former pump house that we have there. There's been some upgrades to Hunts Mill, such as the dog parks, plural. There's a big dog park. There's a little dog park that was just incorporated in that area over there. In addition to that, there is now a community garden that's over there as well. But we have those two pieces of property that just sit there. And we have boards on some of the windows at the pump house. And then we have this other small house that's been just sitting there with nothing. And, to me, maybe that's an opportunity and this was brought to my attention by a constituent, that maybe we get kids from the vocational school who can work on that small house. And it could become part of the educational building that they have there right alongside the house itself.
Right.
So those two pieces of property that are on Hunts Mill, I think, they should be addressed and looked at as part of the plan.
Is the Historical Society am I thinking of the wrong location? Is that in the home that's there?
Yeah, they operate out of the Heinz house, right, Patrick?
That's correct. Yeah, that's our Historical Society's headquarters and museum.
maybe a good partner in that effort.
Krista, I think also Rumford and Ward 1 could help if there was more planning involving them as a gateway to our waterfront district, coming down Waterfront Drive. And there's so much going on there. I want to thank, I think is it Mr. Martin, who is the chair there, and Bill Fazioli and the rest of that waterfront committee. It's probably been the most forgotten part of East Providence. We have a long waterfront from the Barrington line to the Pawtucket line. We have waterfront, and it generally through the years has been ignored. And in recent years, the Waterfront Commission and others are starting to revitalize it. The Wachamoket, which is kind of on the border of Ward 1. But if we can talk about getting people to walk to places, the restaurants, the high-level bars that are there, the yacht clubs, the Tockwatton property, there's so much already there. And I think part of our planning process needs to focus on our waterfront, making that a focal point as you enter the city.
And I would, there is a piece of the current comprehensive plan that does just focus on the waterfront. So that, to your point, it is a critical piece in so much that it is highlighted specifically, and we will continue to do that. But I think to your point too, is connecting it with other parts of the city is also important. And the gateway is that northern part in the Waterfront Drive on the other end. They're redoing the whole Henderson Bridge, and what does that gateway look like for the city as well? There's an opportunity there.
Yeah, Chris, in that general area, I saw something on the news yesterday, and I hadn't heard of it before, but I guess the RIP the buses are going to be able to hook up with some solar panel farm in that area. We've come a long way from, I don't know if we're there yet, I'm not sure, but from oil tanks to solar panels. So that's kind of exciting.
It's quite a transformation. I had not actually thought of that until right now, that transformation of that part. Yeah, there's a lot of property along the waterfront. It originally was all the tank farms and distribution centers for that. So it is, moving on to the next new opportunity. That's great. All right. So how do we feel about moving on to our last question? Are we good? So sometimes those two overlap. There's an area that sort of needs support, or is it a transformation? It can easily become a transformation, right? So where are our big opportunities in East Providence? What are the big ideas that can really just be game changers? Anyone have any thoughts?
Chris, I'll jump in again. Just on that Newport Avenue, there's some, projects coming up there. I know President Brito has been involved in some of that, but and I don't want to jump back, but I wanted to tie into a little bit. There's this intersection of Newport Avenue and Ferris that seems like the last time I saw heavy rains, it still floods, and I'm thinking if this development goes through, and I think that's really going to be exciting. There's two areas, next to the old Uncle Tony's, and I guess behind where the old racetrack was. It'd be nice to get that little section of road so that we're going to get more traffic there. But that's an exciting area. And just going back to what President Brito said about Agawam Hunt, that is a really nice area too. So that's something to really pay attention to. So I'm jumping all over the place, but
no, it's totally fine. We're taking notes. It's
okay. Okay.
So there's new development happening there. Is there, just trying to think of, what that transformation might look like? Is there further opportunities there? Just trying to, thinking of something else that we could sort of explore around there. have any ideas or a new spot that they want to suggest?
I think the area Tom's talking about, and Tom, you're talking about the Capianato project.
Yes.
Yeah, that is so promising. It's been a little frustrating because COVID and other things have slowed it a bit. And I know the council has had them come back into us and try to get a timetable, but I think the plan is already there. We need it to happen. Right. And then you're going to see a lot of vitalization and revitalization with, you know, this new, what is it, live, work, and play theme. It's not new, but new to us and new to that area. So they're hopeful that there'll be people living there, working there, going out to eat there, and having some recreation. So once that comes to fruition and people see it, I think there'll be some jumping off from that.
Right, it's a catalyst that's going to start.
Yeah, just hope they could hurry it up.
That's the one thing about planning. Sometimes it takes a little time to sort of get it through, but that's, you know, that's part of this process, is sort of looking for that big vision. You know, it is a 20-year plan, which can seem a little daunting to try to imagine that time out. But if we take, you know, sort of incremental steps, you can get it, we'll get there. Anyone have anything else that they would like to, what's your transformation idea?
Oh, transformation. Well, I had a question. I know the mayor had brought this up within the last couple of weeks about lack of parking, and I know it's Ward 2, but if there is going to be a fine arts center in the center of the city, kind of near the waterfront, and there's very little parking, you know, parking lots, parking spaces, so on and so forth, how, you know, is there a way to encourage more people to go to that part of the city, to expand on the fine arts center, and all of that? You know, I was just talking to Manny, too bad we didn't have it. I'm going way back because I'm a lot older than most of you, to the days of the trolley cars, when they had those that would transport people back and forth to various sites. And I know, you know, there really isn't a lot of public transportation from Rumford to the center of the city. You have to change buses and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a little clumsy.
It is. But I was just thinking, you know, I know Rick Lawson and his group have done a lot with fine arts, and they're trying to build that up in the center of the city. But there are people throughout the city that would love to go to some of these events and things, but because of lack of parking, we can't. Or, you know, it's difficulty for the elderly. So I was wondering if there has been any thought to providing some type of a shuttle bus or whatever. And I'm going to call them trolley cars again, but something.
I like trolleys. Trolleys
in
work.
San Francisco, you know, I mean, there's just so much that can be done down there. And I know it's not going to happen overnight. And unfortunately, Manny and I won't be alive in 20 years to see all of this. But our children and grandchildren will, and Bobby's grandchildren will be able to do so. So if that could be, you know, thought of.
Yeah, that's something that that's what this process is about. You know, that's, you know, how that's going to be a destination, and a lot of people are going to get there. So how can we make it easier for people to do that? And if it's trying to encourage residents to go there, you know, the idea of a trolley or some sort of loop, that's, you know, that's one thing to think about. And, you know, it's just you know, we're looking for ideas on how to answer that question. You know, it's near the Redmond Bridge. You know, if people are in Providence, they can easily walk over the linear bridge over 195. You know, there's other, you know, trying to figure out, be creative to make those connections to that spot, because that really could be a transformative place. And you know, that's sort of what we need to think about when we look at the comprehensive plan, and how do we make those connections? That's why we have Natalie. You know, that's how her brain works. You know, how can we get people? And, you know, it's not always a car. You know, how do we get people to walk?
Right.
How do we, you know, maybe they'll bike. You know, maybe there's trolley. Maybe RIPTA. You know, there's a special service on big event nights, you know, things to think about, you know, think outside the box. And
down in that Waterfront Square and Waterfront, in the Waterfront Drive area where you're going to have these concerts and stuff, you're going to be drawing thousands of people, and parking is problematic. So some type of a shuttle service or because when those events get out, traffic is all gridlocked in that area. So anything that could get fewer cars in there but more people access to it would help solve that problem, I think.
Here's my thought on that. Water taxi service. We have Ripta right over at India Point Park, literally right across the bay. And I thought of this early on when they started talking about, and I was speaking with my representative on this as well, early on when they were talking about the rehabilitation of the Henderson Bridge, that perhaps that we should provide some type of water taxi service, have a Ripta shuttle right on the opposite side, so people aren't sitting there in, you know, in cold weather or wet weather or extreme hot weather. And the shuttle's there, you get off the water taxi, you jump right on the shuttle, and the shuttle takes you, you know, whether it may be around the city, make several stops around the city. I incorporated that when the discussion came out about Metacomet Country Club. And I thought, wow, this would be a great idea because people were talking about the traffic to and from Veterans Memorial Boulevard in an event that this came to fruition, that maybe we should incorporate a water taxi service over there. Get people to and from, again, you know, my stop at the hospital, the shuttle, you get off the taxi, water taxi, shuttle's already there waiting for you. Stops off at Rhode Island Hospital for an example, because say you either going to one or two stops, I would say either at India Point Park or more importantly, right directly across to Conley Wharf, which is on Allen's Avenue. You can stop over at the hospital, make a stop over in the Jewelry District, and then make a couple stops in downtown area. And then, you know, easy to schedule. This is the time. And it might be a trial basis. You might want to do it, you know, for a week, certain times, maybe at 7 a.m. or 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and that's it. And here's your pickup at 4 and 5 o'clock, and that's it. And have an area where people can park their cars right there and, you know, drive home if they're on the further southern part of the city in Riverside. They could, you know, they're only going from Veterans Memorial Parkway, halfway, by the way, not all the way. And then you can go right on your merry way. So that was a thought that I've always had and thought of early on.
Just to share with the group, I met with Scott Avedisian some time back, and they have a transportation plan, like a 20-year or 40-year transportation plan. And part of it was, I guess their dream would be to have sort of like trolleys, but it would be service, rail service that would be able to serve different parts of the state and connect in the hub in Providence. So they're speaking about it. Ripta is looking at that. So that's fantastic. It seems like that's something that people want to see happen. And Council President, as far as the water taxi goes, I had heard that recently mentioned. I know you had mentioned it before, but I heard it recently mentioned with what's going on in Pawtucket. The development that's going on in Pawtucket, the potential development is going to happen on our waterfront, and how you can connect both venues by water taxi. But to expand it upon what you're saying makes great sense too.
Continue down the river.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could get to the new soccer stadium. Wouldn't have to get in my car. Could take the water taxi.
or they could get down to our brand new music venue once that gets built.
There's so much to do.
Well, think about it. You get off, you walk to your destination, and you get back on. You don't have to worry about parking at all. It's not an issue anymore.
A lot of exciting things going on right now in the city.
Yeah. So we're still on transformation and reimagine. Any other thoughts or ideas? It's all right.
Krista, I don't know if this is flowing anyway, but I know you were at the Economic Development Commission and you made a president, and I mentioned Six Corners, and I'm just looking at my friend Dominic over there in the corner. I said, jump in. But Dominic did a little bit of a study on, excuse me, on the Six Corners, and we talked about it. And I think it ties into what Chairman Jonas said before. Not quite in that area, but it's pretty darn close. And I just think that that area, that loop and the circle and the Six Corners is just not very conducive for business and stuff like that. And actually, I'm going to podcasts. We're going to pick up something for Easter. My wife is not going to cook, and we're going to give it kind of the day off. And I'm going to kind of ask them if they have a moment just to think, see what they feel about if that was a two-way area right in front of their business, and see. I'm just kind of curious. So I'm talking to a few people about that, and I know we kind of shook our heads. I was like, how are we going to fix this thing? But I know the Department of Transportation, Rhode Island, years ago did come up with a plan. So there must be something there somewhere. I think that's got potential, but again, that's I'm not quite sure if that flows. But
yeah.
I had to jump in. So
okay. Yep. Okay, I mean, it's very car oriented, yeah. And you know, that was what I would imagine that was the purpose of it. It's got the under and the it's all just to move cars through. There's no, it doesn't really encourage people to stop.
Right, and I just think if if we'd have to look at it on a, and Dominic could probably help with that, but have the split where you're going towards Seekonk, and you get some traffic going on Waterman, some traffic going on 44 Taunton Avenue. I don't think it would be so congested there, and I think that would actually be, you know, it would take the traffic, give them the opportunity to go by these businesses, but not have it so much traffic that it's, I won't say dangerous, but it's not conducive to stop as much. So I just think that's got a lot of potential. I don't know if we can ever do it, but I'm going to say it again because it's kind of like I'd love to help you with that. So go ahead, Dominic, jump in.
He's not going to do it.
Well, I'll agree with Tom that is a jumble over there. Friends of ours from out of the city always ask me how it is that they take the Taunton Avenue exit and end up on Waterman Avenue without taking any turns. It's if you're not from East Providence, that whole intersection, Six Corners area is a jumble. It's confusing, and it cannot be conducive to businesses in the area. It just can't be.
And I just want to say I've lived there, live in Rumford now, Ward 1, but grew up in that area, and I've seen accidents, and it's just, you know, I don't know if we ever did a traffic study on that, but you know, it's dangerous at times too, just for traffic, people going the wrong way, coming out of, you know, I see a lot of it. They come out of Irving Avenue, take a left, try to go towards Seekonk, right just before Fox Toyota, where the old people don't know, but the Butler Chevrolet. That's a common mistake that people do. I've seen it too many times. So.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you bringing that up. So that's great. So I see we have a new joinee. Hi, Vivian. I know you had emailed you weren't going to be able to join us, but thank you. We're actually almost wrapping up. She's on mute. You're on mute. But I wanted to, maybe start, Brenda, I just want to give you another opportunity. If there's any thoughts that you had after listening to us, give you an opportunity to give some insight. We don't want you to, if you had some ideas to let us know. Got some good ideas here. Our folks, is there anything else that we want to add to our list? We still have a little bit of time. So Vivian, we're talking about areas that we want to transform in the city. Oh, okay. So we had talked about Six Corners, which you probably caught the tail end. We talked about the new Fine Arts Center and that area down at Wachamoket Square. We talked about Agawam. We talked about Newport Avenue at Ferris and that new development. So those are our transformation opportunities. Something to be completely different. So I don't know, anybody else have anything to add? Any new ideas? I mean, and I will this is sort of our first outreach to everyone to kind of get ideas about this. We did, you know, our survey sort of touched on some of this too, but if you want to continue to contact us and let us know your ideas, you know, that's what this process is about, to continually be available for everyone to sort of, you know, making sure we're hearing what everyone has to say. So we're continuing. We have 3 other meetings too. So you can also attend other meetings if that's your choice as well. For those who weren't able to attend tonight, we will continue to open that up to everyone.
If we're going to close, I have something to say. If you're about to close. One of the things I notice as I travel around the city, primarily in my area here where I currently live, is I'm seeing more and more younger families, seeing more moms, more dads pushing baby carriages. And we have a tendency of going over because it's so easy and convenient that here we are in East Providence, in Rhode Island, but yet we do most, if not all, our shopping in Massachusetts. We get our gas in Massachusetts, and we eat in restaurants in Massachusetts as well. So I'd like to see that, you know, we establish something. I don't know what exactly it is, but have something here in East Providence to keep us here in East Providence and bring people here in East Providence. Not too often, I mean, we're constantly and always going to Massachusetts, including myself. And there are a lot of people that I speak to as well who say the same exact thing, that they're always going to Massachusetts for restaurants, they're going to Massachusetts for their gas, they're going to Massachusetts for the shopping. I can understand, you know, the shopping aspect of it, but we don't have a shopping center here. But restaurants, we have a lot of nice restaurants. You know, gas, I understand that's not the city's issue, it's more of a state issue than anything else. But we need to keep the people that we have here. I think one of the biggest things, and Mr. Venatero had touched on it earlier, was the high school, the new high school. People realizing, seeing that, wow, look at this state-of-the-art high school that we have. It's a great place to live. Try to buy property here in East Providence today. How difficult it is to purchase property here. So people want to come here. Try to get an apartment here in East Providence. How difficult it is. That's why you're going to be seeing so many apartments going up over the next several years. It's a high demand. So with that demand, you know, I would think that we